Good evening, weary soul. Tonight we will descend into the boiling waters of the cauldrons and the wood-smoked haze of medieval kitchens. But first, like the video, leave your comment, and share it with another weary soul. Ready? Then, let us begin.
Before the castle wakes, before the chapel bells tremble through stone corridors, before the Lord turns in his feathered bed, the kitchen is already alive. Not awake, alive. You step inside while the sky is still a deep, bruised blue. Dawn has not yet broken, but the darkness here is softer, shaped by shadows that remember yesterday's fire. The air is cold enough to bite. It smells of ash, damp stone, old grease, and something faintly sour. Yesterday's pottage clinging to iron. You hear it before you see it, a slow scrape, metal against stone. Someone kneels before the great hearth. The hearth is massive, wide enough to swallow a man whole. Blackened walls rise above it, layered in years of smoke. The ceiling beams are stained, nearly tar dark, from decades of fire. A woman is crouched there, wrapped in wool and linen. Her hands are steady, experienced. Fire must be born again every morning. There are no matches, no turning of knobs, no easy flame, only flint, steel, breath, patience. A spark jumps, dies. Another. She leans closer. Smoke rises first, thin and uncertain. Your eyes sting. You taste the air. She blows gently, as if speaking to a fragile creature. And then the smallest orange pulse, alive. The first flame of the day. This is how the castle survives. Not with swords, with embers. The kitchen is not beautiful. If you imagined golden light and orderly shelves, release that image now. The medieval kitchen is not picturesque. It is labor. It is hierarchy. It is heat waiting to happen. The floor beneath your boots is packed earth, scattered with straw to absorb spills. Grease has darkened certain patches permanently. Water seeps toward a shallow gutter carved along the wall. Rats know this place well. They wait in the beams. They wait beneath the grain sacks. They are part of the rhythm here. By the time the flame strengthens, more bodies begin to arrive. No greetings, only movement. The master cook enters last. He does not rush. His authority is quiet. He surveys the hearth first, always the hearth, because without fire, there is nothing. You belong to the heat. You are low in the hierarchy, very low. Your hands are already raw from yesterday. Today they will split again. Your first task, water. The well sits in the outer yard. The rope is stiff with frost. You lower the bucket into darkness and listen for the distant splash. Lift, carry, lift, carry. Before sunrise, you have already walked the length of the yard more times than you can count. Inside, the fire grows bold. It no longer whispers, it breathes. Large logs are added. Sparks leap upward. The warmth spreads outward in waves. Stand too close and your skin tightens. Stand too far and you shiver. There is no perfect distance, only endurance. Breakfast is a continuation. There is no fresh beginning in a medieval kitchen, only continuation. The great cauldron hanging over the fire is never truly emptied. Pottage, grains, barley, oats, turnips, cabbage, scraps of salted pork if fortune allows. Yesterday's stew becomes today's base. Today's stew will become tomorrow's memory. The pot is fed constantly, like a living mouth. You stir with a wooden paddle taller than your arm span. The surface bubbles lazily. Steam coats your face. You inhale it. It smells heavy, earthy, honest. This is what most people eat. Not roasted swans, not sugared almonds. Pottage, thick enough to cling to a spoon, thin enough to stretch for many mouths. A quiet shock. You may think the kitchen feeds only the Lord. It feeds everyone. Servants, guards, stable boys, visiting clergy, traveling messengers. A large household can require food for over 100 people daily. Imagine the mathematics of hunger. Imagine the firewood alone. Entire forests disappear into kitchens like this. The castle may stand as a symbol of military power, but the kitchen is its engine. Color is power. Mid-morning brings preparation for the upper tables. Here, something unexpected happens. Spices emerge, carefully wrapped in cloth, stored in locked chests. Cinnamon, cloves, nutmeg, ginger. These do not make food spicy in the modern sense. They make it impressive, bright, exotic. Yellow saffron dissolves into broth like liquid gold. A sauce turns deep crimson from ground sandalwood. Sometimes cooks even tint dishes blue with crushed flowers. Blue meat, blue bread, because spectacle is wealth, and wealth must be seen. Food is not only nourishment, It is theater. It announces power without a word being spoken. The sound of industry. By now, the kitchen is no longer quiet. Knives strike wooden blocks in steady rhythm. Bones crack beneath cleavers. Water sloshes across stone. Orders move through the air. Not screamed, directed, precise. More salt. Turn the spit. Watch the crust. A boy stands at the great spit wheel, turning a mechanism connected to iron rods. A whole pig rotates slowly above the flames. Forward, forward, forward. He will stand there for hours. If he slows, the skin burns. If he stops, he is punished. His world is rotation. He smells permanently of smoke. He dreams of turning. The heat becomes a presence. By late morning, the kitchen transforms. The fire roars now. Multiple hearths blaze. Ovens glow like open mouths. Sweat runs into your eyes. Your linen clings to your spine. The air itself feels thick. Breathing becomes work. There are no open windows, only narrow slits in the stone. Smoke gathers above, drifting like a ceiling cloud. You taste salt on your lips, not from seasoning, from your own skin. The kitchen is the most dangerous room in the castle. Open flames, boiling fat, heavy iron pots suspended by chains. One slip, one stumble. Scars are common. Burns are expected. Pain is folded quietly into the routine. The work does not pause for injury, because hunger does not pause. Hunger beside abundance. You prepare dishes you may never taste. Upper tables eat first. Lower tables eat what remains. Sometimes nothing remains. And yet, temptation is constant. A crust fallen unnoticed. A spoon left unattended. A drop of honey clinging to a bowl. Tiny rebellions, small mercies. You learn to swallow quickly, to hide satisfaction, to return to work as if nothing happened. Because in this room, watching eyes are everywhere. Midday approaches. The first wave of meals must be ready soon. Bread is pulled from ovens with long wooden paddles. The crust crackles as it cools. Steam escapes when loaves are broken open. For a brief second, the smell is transcendent. Warm, nutty, alive. Butter melts instantly when spread. But that bread does not belong to you. It is carried upward, through corridors you rarely walk, to tables you will never sit at. The doors swing open. Trenchers are loaded. Sauces poured, thick and glossy. Roasted meats lifted carefully onto platters. You stand back as servants line up. They move quickly, silently, like a procession. The food leaves the kitchen, and suddenly there is a moment of stillness. The fire crackles. Someone exhales deeply. For the first time since before dawn, there is quiet, but it will not last, because this was only the first service, and by afternoon, the real chaos will begin. The doors close after the first service. For a moment, the kitchen exhales, not in relief, in suspension. The fire still roars, but softer now. The urgency has thinned. The rush of footsteps fades down the stone corridor. The clatter of trenchers disappears into the great hall above. You remain, because the kitchen never truly rests. Smoke gathers in slow-moving layers beneath the rafters. It curls and folds like tired fabric. Sunlight begins to slip through narrow stone slits high in the wall, cutting pale beams through the haze. Dust dances inside that light. Ash drifts downward in soft spirals. The air is warmer now, not the biting cold of dawn, not yet the suffocating intensity of a banquet. This is the in-between hour, the hour where thoughts return. You lean against the heavy wooden table, scarred by knives older than you. Your palms still vibrate from the rhythm of chopping. Your shoulders ache with a deep, familiar heaviness. Across the room, the boy at the spit wheel still turns. Forward, forward, forward. The pig has been replaced with a joint of beef. Fat drips steadily into the flames, hissing. The smell is rich, almost sweet. He does not complain. He does not speak. He has learned that silence preserves energy, and in this kitchen, energy is survival. The afternoon tasks no one sees. The Lord and his guests eat upstairs, surrounded by music, color, and spectacle. Below them, the true labor continues. Bones are cracked open for marrow. Herbs are crushed with stone pestles. Cabbages are shredded into thin, pale ribbons. You sit on a low stool and begin peeling turnips. The knife is dull. You work slowly, rotating each vegetable in your palm. Peel, turn, peel, turn. The rhythm is hypnotic. Outside, the world moves toward afternoon. Inside, time thickens. It does not pass quickly here. It simmers. There are no clocks. Time is measured in firewood, in rising dough, in the way shadows shift across stone. The master cook inspects the larder, Salted fish hang stiff as boards from iron hooks. Hams cure in the dim coolness. Sacks of grain rest against the wall, carefully guarded. Grain is wealth. Grain is stability. Without grain, there is no pottage. Without pottage, there is unrest. You begin to understand something subtle. The kitchen is political, not in speeches, in portions, in who eats first, in who eats last, in who does not eat at all. A quiet conversation. Two scullery maids sit near the smaller hearth, scraping burned bits from iron pans. Their voices are low, almost woven into the crackling fire. One speaks of her village, a river, a small wooden chapel. She has not seen it in years. The other listens, nods, does not offer her own story. Because in kitchens like this, stories are currency, and currency must be spent carefully. You realize something else. Most people here did not choose this life. Some were born into service. Some were sent as payment for debts. Some arrived as children and never left. The kitchen becomes their world. Stone walls, firelight, endless repetition. And yet, within that repetition, there are moments of softness, a shared crust of bread, a brief laugh when the master cook leaves the room, a hand briefly touching another in passing, small, fragile, human warmth. The weight of heat. As the afternoon deepens, the fire grows stronger again. Preparation for the evening meal begins long before hunger returns. You carry logs from the woodpile. Your arms tremble as you lift them. Each log feels heavier than the last. Wood is life here. Without wood, the kitchen dies. You stack them carefully. The heat presses against your face like an unseen hand. Your skin smells permanently of smoke. Your hair traps the scent of grease. Even in sleep, you will carry this aroma. Historians often speak of medieval life in terms of kings and battles, but rarely do they describe the smell, the constant smell. Smoke embedded in fabric, animal fat clinging to skin, sour milk turning in warm corners. The kitchen is a place of transformation. Raw becomes cooked. Grain becomes bread. Milk becomes cheese. But nothing disappears entirely. Everything leaves a trace. The unexpected stillness. At some point, the noise lowers, not because there is less work, but because bodies have settled into endurance. Movements become economical. Words become unnecessary. The master cook no longer gives many orders. He observes, adjusts, trusts the rhythm. You begin shaping small loaves of coarse bread for the lower tables. Your hands press and fold the dough. Press, fold, turn, press. There is comfort in this. The dough yields under your palms. It listens. It responds. For a moment, the kitchen feels almost gentle. You imagine the bread rising later near the embers. You imagine someone tearing it open, steam rising. Even if that someone is not you, there is a quiet satisfaction in feeding others, even when you remain hungry. A subtle fear. And yet, beneath the contemplation, fear never vanishes entirely. Fire can turn. A hanging pot can fall. A blade can slip. In medieval kitchens, accidents were common. Burns were ordinary. Severe burns could be fatal. Infections could follow the smallest cut. There are no sterile bandages here, no antiseptic, only herbs, honey, hope. You glance at a scar on your forearm, old, white against reddened skin. You do not remember the exact moment it happened, only the pain afterward, and the fact that work continued, because the meal could not wait. The psychology of service. As the afternoon light shifts toward gold, you feel something else settle over the room. Resignation. Not despair, not joy. Resignation. This is your place. This is your rhythm. The castle above may shift in politics and alliances. Marriages may be arranged. Wars may begin. But here, the fire must still be lit. The bread must still rise. The meat must still turn. You begin to see the kitchen as a heartbeat beneath the castle's ribs. Steady, unseen, essential. If it stops, everything stops. A small revelation. There is something historians rarely emphasize. Many master cooks were highly respected. In some households, they earned wages higher than minor knights, because food is power. Food is diplomacy. Food can impress a visiting lord more effectively than armor. A poorly prepared feast could damage reputation. A spectacular one could secure alliances. So while you scrape pans and peel roots, remember this: above you, political futures may hinge on the texture of a sauce you helped stir. Your invisible labor ripples outward. You may never see the result, but it matters. The boy at the spit wheel finally pauses as another servant replaces him. His hands tremble slightly when he releases the handle. He steps back, flexes his fingers. For the first time today, he smiles faintly, not at anyone, just at the relief of stillness. Outside, the light begins to fade. Shadows lengthen across the floor. The second service approaches, but this time, the urgency feels different. Not chaotic, inevitable. The fire brightens again. You step forward, because the long afternoon of smoke and thought is ending, and evening will ask for more. Evening does not arrive suddenly in a medieval kitchen. It gathers, slowly, like steam thickening above a pot. The light outside softens into amber. The narrow slits in the stone walls glow briefly before dimming. Inside, the fire takes over again as the primary sun. Its glow paints every face in flickering gold. Shadows move across the walls like silent companions. You feel the fatigue now, not sharp, but deep. It settles into your bones. Your hands continue working, but they do so from memory. Chop, stir, lift, carry. Your thoughts drift as your body obeys. Preparing for the second table. The evening meal is not always grand, but it must be reliable. Reliability is a form of respect. A stew thickens in a smaller pot. Onions soften slowly in rendered fat. The smell changes from sharp to sweet. You pause for half a breath to inhale. There is comfort in that scent. It reminds you that even in a world of rigid hierarchy, transformation is possible. Harsh becomes tender. Bitter becomes mellow. Grain becomes bread. You knead dough again, this time more slowly. The fire is hotter now. Sweat gathers at your collar. Across the room, one of the older women hums softly, not loudly enough to attract reprimand, just enough to steady herself. The melody is simple, repetitive, almost like prayer, and perhaps it is. In kitchens like this, rhythm becomes devotion. The things left unsaid. There are stories here that never rise above the fire. The man who once worked in the fields but lost the strength in his leg after a winter illness. The girl who arrived at 10 years old and cannot remember her mother's face clearly anymore. The master cook himself, who trained in another castle before earning his place here. Their pasts hover quietly between movements. No one asks directly, but everyone senses it. You realize something as you scrape the bottom of a pot. Service shapes identity. When your days are defined by heat and repetition, you begin to measure yourself by endurance, not by ambition, not by dreams, by survival. And survival, in its own way, is sacred. The body learns before the mind. By now, your hands know the weight of every tool without looking. You can reach for the correct ladle in darkness. You know how long bread must sit in your embers by the feel of its surface. You know the difference between a dangerous flame and a hungry one by sound alone. The kitchen teaches through sensation, not through books, not through written instruction. There are no cookbooks here. Knowledge passes from hand to hand, from eye to eye, from burn scar to burn scar. If someone leaves, the knowledge thins. If someone dies, a technique may vanish with them. The medieval kitchen is fragile in this way. It survives only through memory, and memory lives in bodies. The quiet tension of expectation. As the second service nears, the master cook grows more alert. He tastes sauces carefully, adjusts salt with precise fingers, watches the texture of the stew as it thickens. He does not shout. He does not need to. The room responds to his posture alone. You carry trenchers closer to the preparation table. Stack them. Count them. Count again. There must be enough. There must always be enough. Upstairs, conversation begins to swell again as guests gather. You cannot hear the words clearly, but you can sense the anticipation. The kitchen feels it too, like a pulse shifting. Even contemplation must now move aside for focus. A glimpse of reflection. For a brief moment, you catch your reflection in a polished metal platter, distorted, blurred by scratches. Your face is thinner than you remember. Soot smudges one cheek. Your eyes look older than your years. You study yourself for a heartbeat. Then someone calls your name, and the reflection disappears. In medieval life, there is little time for self-examination. Work defines you. Mirrors are rare. Introspection rarer still. And yet, in these small pauses, awareness flickers. You are more than your labor, even if the world rarely acknowledges it. The fire as witness. The second meal moves more smoothly than the first, less frantic, more practiced. You ladle stew into bowls, watching the surface ripple. Steam rises and vanishes into smoke. The boy at the spit wheel turns again, but this time more slowly. The meat glistens under its own fat. The fire witnesses everything. It sees exhaustion. It sees minor triumphs. It sees small mistakes corrected before they grow dangerous. It consumes wood without judgment. It gives heat without preference. The fire does not care who is noble and who is servant. It burns the same for all. There is something strangely equal in that. A subtle historical truth. In many medieval households, kitchens were built slightly apart from the main hall, not for convenience, but for safety. Fire was constant. A single accident could consume an entire wooden structure. Castles burned. Manors collapsed. Entire households lost to sparks carried by wind. So the kitchen often stood as both heart and threat, essential and feared. You glance upward at the smoke-blackened beams and imagine flame spreading too far. You imagine chaos. You imagine loss. Then you return to stirring, because imagination does not feed anyone. Work does. After the second service, the food leaves again. Footsteps fade. Laughter echoes faintly above. And once more, the kitchen settles into aftermath. This time, the fatigue is heavier, more honest. You sink onto a bench near the wall, not to rest completely, just to breathe. Someone passes you a small crust of bread. No words, just a glance. You accept it. The bread is coarse, slightly burned at the bottom. It tastes like smoke and relief. You chew slowly. Around you, others eat in similar silence. No ceremony, no abundance, just enough. And in that moment, something quiet and profound settles over the room. Community. Not declared, not celebrated, simply present. You all endured the day together. You all bent under the same heat. You all smelled the same smoke. In a world divided sharply by class, this shared exhaustion becomes its own bond. The dimming light. Outside, night approaches fully now. The last traces of amber vanish. The fire glows brighter in contrast. Tasks remain. Always tasks remain. Pots must be scrubbed. Ashes managed. Grain measured for tomorrow's pottage. You carry a bucket of cooling embers to the side. Carefully, slowly. The floor creaks beneath your boots. Your body feels older than it did this morning. And yet, you survived. In medieval kitchens, survival was not guaranteed. Disease lingered, injuries worsened. Famine could reduce portions without warning. But tonight, there was enough. Tonight, no one screamed in agony. Tonight, the fire stayed contained. These are victories, small, unspoken, but real. The deeper realization. As the final pots are stacked and the flames lowered to embers, a realization forms in you. The kitchen is not merely a place of labor. It is a world within a world. It has its own hierarchy, its own language, its own rituals. Above you, politics shift like wind. But down here, the rhythm is ancient. Fire, grain, salt, water. Repeat, repeat, repeat. The medieval kitchen is older than the castle itself, older than the current lord, older than any single life inside it. It will continue after you. It existed before you. You are a thread in a tapestry of smoke and sustenance, and that is both humbling and strangely comforting. The transition toward night. The master cook finally nods once, a signal. The day's main labor is complete. Only maintenance remains. You step outside briefly into the night air. The cold shocks your lungs. The sky stretches wide and black above the courtyard. Stars pierce the darkness. You did not see them this morning. You were inside. And tomorrow, you will be inside again before they fade. You look back at the kitchen door. Light flickers through its cracks. Smoke curls gently into the night. From the outside, it looks peaceful, almost serene. No one passing through the courtyard would imagine the intensity inside. No one would guess how much endurance lives behind those stone walls. You understand now something vital. History remembers kings, but history is sustained by kitchens. Without this room, there are no feasts, no alliances, no celebrations, no daily bread. Without this fire, power starves. And so, as you step back inside to finish the final tasks, you carry that awareness quietly. You are part of the hidden machinery of survival, the unseen heartbeat beneath the castle's stone ribs. And as the embers dim and the night deepens, you prepare without words to do it all again. Tomorrow. The feast above ends in laughter. Below, the kitchen does not. The doors close once more, and this time they close with weight. Not urgency, not anticipation. Wait. The air feels different now, heavier. The fire, once roaring, has settled into a deep red glow. The largest flames have been tamed, but the heat remains. It radiates from stone, from iron, from the very floor beneath your feet. Your body is no longer moving quickly. It is moving carefully, because exhaustion has changed the way you exist inside yourself. You do not rush. You conserve. The aftermath. The true work of the kitchen begins when others believe it is done. Trenchers return, stacked and smeared with grease. Bones lie stripped clean. Wine has stained wood dark purple. You begin scraping plates with a flat blade. The sound is rhythmic, soft, persistent. Scrape, turn, scrape. The stew pot is nearly empty now, a thin layer of thickened grain clinging to the bottom. You fill it with water and set it near the embers to loosen the remains. Nothing is wasted. Nothing can be wasted. In medieval kitchens, abundance is illusion. Survival is discipline. The silence between workers. Conversation fades at this hour, not because there is nothing to say, but because words require energy, and energy is scarce. You work beside others whose breathing you recognize without looking. The older woman who hums in the afternoon now says nothing. The boy who turned the spit sits on the floor briefly, back against stone, eyes half closed. His hands are blistered. He presses them against the cool wall for relief. You notice. You say nothing. Compassion in this room is often silent. Burn scars. As you scrub a pan, your sleeve slips slightly. The scar on your forearm catches the firelight. Raised, pale, memory without story. You begin to notice the others. The master cook has a scar along his wrist, thin but deep. One of the maids carries a burn across the back of her hand, shaped like spilled fat. The kitchen marks its own. There are no medals here, only scars. And scars are proof of endurance. In some ways, they are badges. In others, they are warnings. You learn to move around danger like a second language. You learn where the floor becomes slick. You learn which pot chain creaks before slipping. You learn that fire can shift direction when a door opens too quickly. These lessons are written in skin. The smell that never leaves. Even as the fire dims, the smell remains. Smoke, fat, boiled cabbage. It clings to fabric long after washing. It seeps into hair. It lingers in sleep. Medieval kitchens did not allow you to leave untouched. You carry the scent into the courtyard, into your bed, into your dreams. If you ever leave this castle, the smell may leave with you, a ghost of heat, a reminder of who you were. The last tasks. Ash must be managed carefully. Too much and tomorrow's fire will choke. Too little and embers may die. You kneel before the hearth once more. The same hearth that was dark at dawn. Now it glows quietly, patient. You shift embers gently with an iron rod. Arrange them so they will survive the night. A medieval kitchen rarely lets its fire die completely. Keeping a coal alive is easier than birthing flame from nothing. So even in darkness, the heart continues beating. A whispered confession. As you rise, someone speaks softly behind you. I once thought I would leave. You turn slightly. It is the older woman. Her voice is barely above breath. I thought I would marry, have a garden. She gives a small, humorless smile. The kitchen kept me. There is no bitterness in her tone, only acknowledgement. The kitchen keeps many, not by chains, but by necessity. Leaving requires means, opportunity, permission. Three things rarely aligned. You wonder, briefly, what your own future holds. Then you lower your gaze, because speculation can be dangerous. Hope can distract from survival. After heat. When the final pots are stacked and the last surfaces wiped, your body begins to feel what it has endured. Your shoulders throb. Your hands pulse faintly. Your lower back burns with a steady ache. You flex your fingers slowly. They feel stiff, older than they should. In medieval life, bodies age early. Hard labor compresses years. By 30, many look 50. By 40, few remain unmarked. The kitchen accelerates time, but it also gives rhythm. There is something grounding in repetition, in knowing what tomorrow will require. Fire, water, grain, salt, repeat. Stepping outside. You step into the courtyard again. The night is colder now, quieter. The feast above has dissolved into softer conversation. A dog barks somewhere beyond the walls. You tilt your head upward. Stars scatter across the sky. For a moment, you stand still, completely still. The silence feels enormous after a day of constant sound. Your ears ring faintly. You inhale deeply. The air tastes clean, untouched by smoke. You realize something subtle. The kitchen isolates you from the world. Inside, time folds inward. Outside, the sky expands. Both exist simultaneously. You live between them. The final reflection. When you return inside for the last time tonight, the kitchen is dim. Only embers glow. The master cook has already left. The boy sleeps curled near the warm wall. Others have disappeared quietly into shared sleeping quarters. You remain for one last glance. The tables are empty. The knives are stacked. The floor is swept. If someone walked in now, they might imagine the room peaceful. They would not see the day that unfolded here. They would not feel the heat that pressed against skin. They would not hear the rhythm of knives or the steady turning of iron spits. History rarely records this room. It records battles, coronations, treaties. But without this space, none of those moments would have been possible. No warrior fights well on an empty stomach. No alliance forms without shared bread. No celebration survives without prepared meat. The medieval kitchen is invisible in glory, yet essential in survival. And you, exhausted, marked, silent, are part of its quiet machinery. Tomorrow, before the castle wakes, before bells tremble through stone, before the Lord demands bread, you will kneel before the hearth again. You will coax flame from ash. You will stir pottage that never truly ends. You will endure heat that shapes bone, and you will remain unseen, but necessary, always necessary. The embers dim slightly. You lower yourself onto a wooden bench, close your eyes, and let the last warmth of the fire press gently against your skin. In the medieval kitchen, the day never truly ends. It waits. The embers that remain. The castle above has gone quiet. Laughter fades into murmurs. Murmurs fade into distant footsteps. Footsteps dissolve into stone silence. But the kitchen still breathes. It no longer roars. It glows. The great hearth is reduced to embers, deep, pulsing red beneath soft ash. The flames that dominated the day have retreated inward. What remains is quieter, but not weaker. You stand before it again, not as you did at dawn, cold, expectant. Now you are marked by it. Your skin carries the memory of heat. Your hair smells of smoke. Your hands are lined with flour, pressed into small creases. You kneel slowly, because the body no longer bends quickly after a day like this. The room after labor. There is something intimate about a kitchen after service. The tables are empty. The knives are stacked. The cauldrons hang in patient stillness. Even the air feels different, less frantic, more settled. It carries the residue of effort. Grease cools on wooden surfaces. Herbs wilt slightly in bowls. A forgotten spoon rests near the edge of a table, coated in thickened stew. The room is no longer a battlefield. It is aftermath, and you are still inside it. What exhaustion reveals? Fatigue is honest. It strips away illusion. You no longer move with performance. You no longer measure your posture. You exist without pretense. Your shoulders drop. Your breath deepens. Your hands tremble slightly when they finally stop working. This is the hour when truth rises quietly, not spoken loudly, felt. You feel the cost of the day in your bones, the lifting, the turning, the bending over fire. The body keeps record. Medieval life does not allow softness for long. But in these moments, when the fire dims and the castle sleeps, you encounter something rare: stillness. The embers and the memory of flame. You study the hearth carefully. If the embers die completely, tomorrow begins harder. Flint and steel again. Smoke before flame, cold before warmth. So you lean forward and gently stir the ash. A faint orange glow responds, alive. You add a small piece of wood, not too large, not too eager. The kitchen does not need roaring fire tonight. It needs survival. This is the quiet discipline of medieval kitchens. Keep something alive, even when no one is watching. You realize something as you tend the embers. The fire is not merely tool. It is continuity. It was here before you. It will remain after you. You are not the master of it. You are its caretaker. The bodies that remain. One by one, others leave. Footsteps fade toward sleeping quarters. The boy who turned the spit limps slightly now. He does not complain. He presses his blistered palms against cool stone before disappearing through the doorway. The older woman wraps her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The master cook lingers the longest. He inspects the hearth. He inspects you. Not unkindly, just measuring. Then he nods once, approval without words. He leaves, and now you are alone with the embers, the kitchen without witness. This is a version of the room no guest ever sees. No noble stands here at this hour. No musician plays. No candlelight flickers for spectacle. Only low firelight paints the stone. The beams above are thick with decades of smoke. The walls hold stories that were never written. How many hands have stood where you stand? How many mornings began with kneeling before this same hearth? How many workers lived and died without their names recorded? History will remember the Lord upstairs. It will remember wars and treaties. It will remember banners and bloodlines. But it will not remember this room. And yet, without this room, none of that history could stand. Hunger is political. You think about the meals served today, the careful seasoning, the measured portions, the hierarchy of who received which dish. Hunger shapes obedience. Abundance shapes loyalty. In medieval households, kitchens were quiet centers of control. A well-fed guard is a reliable guard. A satisfied guest becomes an ally. A neglected servant may become a threat. You have watched plates move upward and downward. You have watched which tables received honeyed dishes. Which tables received thinner stew? Food travels along invisible lines of power, and you, though unseen, help shape those lines. The weight of repetition. Tomorrow will be the same, not identical, but patterned. Before dawn, the hearth will be dark again. You will kneel. You will coax flame from ash. You will breathe smoke before warmth. There is comfort in knowing this. Repetition anchors the mind. In uncertain times, and medieval times are always uncertain, routine becomes stability. Fire, water, grain, salt. Repeat. It is older than kings, older than castles, older than this stone. You belong to that rhythm now. The dream of leaving. For a moment, just one, you allow yourself a forbidden thought. What if you left? What if one morning you did not kneel before the hearth? What if you walked beyond the castle gates and never returned? You imagine fields, wind, silence unbroken by crackling fire. You imagine your hands unmarked, your clothes free of smoke. The thought lingers, then fades. Because leaving requires more than desire. It requires coin, connection, permission, and survival beyond these walls is no guarantee. The kitchen may be relentless, but it is certain. Certainty is powerful, even when it confines. The fire as witness. You sit back on your heels and watch the embers pulse. Fire sees everything. It sees anger swallowed. It sees exhaustion masked. It sees small kindnesses exchanged without words. It saw the boy struggle with the spit. It saw you steal a crust of bread earlier. It saw the master cook adjust seasoning with almost surgical precision. It sees without judgment. It burns without favoritism. Noble hands and servant hands both warm themselves at its glow. In this way, fire is the only true equalizer in the castle. It answers to no title, only to fuel. The hidden engine of power. You begin to understand the kitchen differently now, not merely as labor, not merely as heat, but as engine. Above you, alliances form over shared meat and wine. Marriages are negotiated over sugared almonds. Wars are postponed or accelerated depending on hospitality. A poorly prepared feast can insult. A magnificent one can impress. And all of it begins here, in flour-dusted hands, in blistered palms, in smoke-filled lungs. The medieval kitchen is invisible in chronicles, but indispensable in reality. You are part of something vast, even if your name will not survive. The body at rest. Eventually, you rise. You brush ash from your knees. Your body protests. A dull ache settles across your back. Your hands feel swollen, older. You stretch them slowly. Flex. Release. The skin along your knuckles is cracked from heat and cold alternating. You will wake tomorrow with stiffness. You will move anyway. Because this is what bodies do in this century. They endure. The castle above. Through the stone ceiling, you imagine the Lord sleeping. Feather mattress, heavy blankets, warmth carried upward from the very fire you tended. He will wake to bread, to fresh pottage, to roasted meat if fortune smiles. He will not see the embers you protected tonight. He will not kneel before the hearth. And yet, his comfort depends entirely on it. This is the silent architecture of medieval life. Labor below, luxury above, smoke beneath, silk above, and between them, stone. The final coal. You add one final small piece of wood, not enough to flare, just enough to ensure life. The embers brighten briefly, then settle again. You feel something in your chest, not pride, not sorrow, recognition. You are part of a chain. Before you, others tended this fire. After you, others will. Your role is temporary. The rhythm is eternal. The circular truth. You stand once more before the hearth, the same position you held at dawn, but you are not the same. Morning brought anticipation. Night brings understanding. You know now what the day costs. You know what it sustains. You know that tomorrow, before the castle wakes, before bells tremble through corridors, before the Lord demands bread, you will kneel here again. Not because you are trapped, but because the fire remembers you, and you remember the fire. The last breath of night. You extinguish the small candle near the wall. Darkness deepens. Only embers glow. You step toward the doorway. Pause. Turn once more. The kitchen is quiet, alive, waiting. You step outside into the cold night air. Stars scatter above the courtyard. For a moment, you let the silence wash over you. Tomorrow, the smoke will return. Tomorrow, the heat will press against your skin. Tomorrow, hunger will demand obedience again. But tonight, the embers survive, and so do you.